Singapore's COVID-19 task force today announcing that the streamlining of safe management rules, first unveiled last month and then postponed shortly after that, will now take effect next week. So mark your calendars. Good evening, I'm Haryanto Diman. You're watching The Big Story. Now, following a delay in streamlining COVID-19 safe management measures, as well as Health Minister Ong Ye Kung's remarks this week that the Omicron wave is subsiding, Singapore will simplify rules from next Tuesday, March 15th. They will cover these 5 parameters. Now, here's a recap. Households can receive 5 visitors at any one time. Social gatherings outside the home remain at 5. Safe distancing will not be required in all mask-on settings, but it's still a must for all mask-off settings, which will be a single safe distance of 1 meter. Workplace requirements will be aligned with community measures, so this means social gatherings at workplaces will be allowed again of up to 5 people. Meanwhile, specific event size limits and zoning requirements will be lifted for events with fewer than 1,000 people, like religious services and wedding receptions. And for larger settings with over 1,000 people, like attractions, MICE events and shopping malls, these would be subject to a capacity limit of 50%. And last, mask wearing remains a default. These parameters were first outlined by the task force back on February 16th, only for the plan to be put on hold a week later, amid a surge in cases. Also from next Tuesday, team sports for up to 30 fully vaccinated people, including players, coaches, umpires, can proceed as earlier planned at selected supervised or operated facilities. The task force making it clear that these moves aren't considered an easing, but a simplification.
I hope everyone understands it is an exercise to simplify, to streamline, and to rationalize. We have assessed this very carefully, distilled this to the most important and effective SMMs, and we believe that doing so will not result in additional risk or transmission risk, because this is not meant to be an easing of rules, it's meant to be a streamlining exercise. Where we are easing is where it comes to sports. So there is some easing with regard to sports because we are allowing team sports for up to 30 fully vaccinated persons to proceed, as we had announced earlier. So this one, yes, there is some easing. We looked at all the different considerations and on balance, we felt that the benefits, the overall health benefits of allowing sports to resume far outweighs the risk of infection, which in fact are low because of the transient contact, the transient nature of contacts when you get engaged in sports itself. And there is, so far, when we look around the world and in Singapore, no clear evidence that such transient contacts while playing sports will lead to higher infections. And that's why, on balance, we felt that we should continue to proceed with sports.
More changes coming on March 15th. Firstly, in a much-awaited easing of rules, significantly more migrant workers will be able to leave their dormitories from that date as well. Up to 15,000 vaccinated dorm residents will be allowed to visit the community on weekdays and up to 30,000 on weekends and public holidays for up to 8 hours per visit. This is an increase from the current quotas of 3,000 on weekdays and 6,000 for weekends and public holidays. Secondly, Singapore will simplify testing requirements for arriving travellers. VTL travellers and those from low-risk countries need to take an unsupervised self-swab ART within 24 hours of arrival, instead of taking a supervised ART. Travellers must then report that test result before proceeding with their activities here. The streamlining of measures, which will begin next week, will serve as an important next step for further easing down the road. Here's how Minister Wong explains it.
Now that we are past the peak of infection, we are likely, while the healthcare system is still very busy, but we are likely to see some easing of the load and the stress on our healthcare system in the coming weeks. Exactly when this will happen, it's still early to say because the system is still very busy now. But as the curve comes down, as the infection rate comes down, we will see some easing of the pressures on our healthcare system. And if this continues, then as we had explained before, we will take further significant steps to ease up. And that means allowing freer international travel and relaxing further our SMMs. And the relaxation of the SMMs will be along these 5 key parameters, which we explained just now. Group size will go up from 5 to a larger number. We will decide what that number is. Mask wearing, we can decide whether or not indoor or outdoor, the different settings, whether we should make it default. Capacity limits, we can go up from 50% to a higher limit. Back to office, we can go up from 50% to a higher percentage. So it's very easy to understand. These are the 5 key parameters, and the next step, we will be able to take significant moves to ease our domestic SMMs, at the same time, free up international travel.
In Parliament today, the law that allows authorities to implement COVID-19 measures has been extended by 1 year. It will now lapse on April 8, 2023. MPs today supported the extension but called for greater clarity on the path forward, as well as regular reviews of the necessity of such measures. This amendment was made to Part 7 of the COVID-19 Temporary Measures Act, which empowers the government to control COVID-19 transmission by imposing quarantine orders, restrictions on movement or entry to certain places, prohibitions of certain activities, and caps on group sizes, venue capacity and business hours, among other things. Parliament has approved the government's $109 billion spending plans for the coming financial year, following 73 hours of debate, during which 66 MPs spoke. Leader of the House, Indrani Raja, says this is the highest level of participation in the last 5 years, despite the reduced number of MPs able to attend Parliament due to COVID-19. And it highlights the, quote, robust debate that comes with this level of participation.
The value of robust debate is that it helps to crystallize the issues, and it lets people see where MPs and parties stand. The Workers' Party has a different philosophical approach. They have preferred not to raise GST, but I don't think there's any dispute that there is a genuine and real need, though, to fund healthcare going forward, and that there is a need for increased revenue. To achieve additional revenue of 3.5 billion a year, the net effect of their various proposals is to tax large companies more, tax the rich, or use more of the reserves. From our perspective, it's too early to adjust corporate taxes, as it will depend on the evolving rules of BEPS 2.0, and even if we're able to collect more in corporate taxes from the revenue for BEPS 2.0, we will have to use these revenues for additional measures to enhance our overall competitiveness and ensure that we can continue to attract our fair share of investments. On taxing the rich, there are ramifications on whether we'll drive away talent and wealth, and that will be bad for Singaporeans. In reality, wealth is mobile. Higher taxes on a small group of people at the top, who are extremely mobile, will eventually lead to higher taxes for upper middle income or even middle income groups. Using more of the reserves means leaving less behind for the next generation and imposing higher taxes on them.
The popular and iconic Ramadan Bazaar in Geylang Serai will make a comeback this year having been cancelled the previous 2 years due to COVID-19. In documents seen by the Straits Times, the People's Association says it's calling for tenders for a quote, Geylang Serai Hari Raya Shopping Experience 2022, which will run from April 2nd to May 2nd. However, the bazaar will be smaller in scope compared with what you're seeing right here, comprising 2 zones near the Wisma Geylang Serai building with up to 20 stalls in each zone. Singapore-based property listings platform Property Guru is set to list on the New York Stock Exchange later this month following a special purpose acquisition company merger. And this is on assumption that shareholders vote in favour of the business combination in an EGM on March 15th. The SPAC merger values Property Guru at about $1.78 billion. Overseas, reporting 1,100 local COVID-19 infections today, China's daily cases have exceeded 1,000 for the first time in 2 years, with the country experiencing outbreaks at a scale only seen at the peak of the initial Wuhan surge. China's caseload is blowing up from a little over 300 less than a week ago as Omicron quickly spreads across some of its densely populated cities in the east, including Shanghai. Meanwhile, the country's second-in-command Premier Li Keqiang confirms he will step down after his current term ends next March. Later this year, President Xi Jinping is expected to secure an unprecedented third term as leader of the ruling Chinese Communist Party when the party elects leaders for the next 5 years. And party leaders can choose the next premier. History was made this week in South Korea's presidential election. For the first time in its democratic history, the ruling party failed to win back-to-back terms. In one of the closest races ever, the winner Yoon SUK-YEOL from the conservative opposition People Power Party received just 48.5% of the vote. That's a mere 247,000 votes more than his rival from the ruling party. Our South Korea correspondent Chang Mi-chun joins us from Seoul. Mi-chun, welcome to the show. It was a very tight race indeed. What was it, you think, that got Mr. Yoon over the finish line first?
Yes, it was indeed a very, very tight race. The difference between the two of them is just 0.7%. Yoon got 48.5% of votes and Lee got 47.8%. This elections is widely thought as an election to cast judgment on the incumbent Moon Jae-in government. And a lot of people have been very unhappy with the Moon government because of his failed policies, of double standard practices. And actually, 5 years ago, President Moon Jae-in won a landslide victory against the Conservative Party because people wanted change. People were very disappointed with the scandals around former President Park Geun-hye, and they wanted change, so that's why they voted Moon in. But 5 years down the road, people found that Moon did not deliver most of his promises, and now they want change, you know, to the other party. So that's why they went up to vote for Yoon SUK-YEOL. But the thing is, with such a small margin, that means half the people did not vote for Yoon SUK-YEOL. And those who did actually believed in his campaign promises that he would bring back fairness and justice, and he would be different.
What will the Yoon presidency then mean for South Korea? Will not having any prior political experience actually be an advantage to him in handling international affairs?
Okay, Yoon is best known for being an icon of justice and fairness. He had pledged to bring back the rule of law given his experience, 26 years of experience as a prosecutor, and then being promoted to prosecutor general. And then during the 2016 trial of former impeached President Park Geun-hye, he was the one who led the trial. So people look up to him as, you know, someone who who does not, who is very uncompromising, who will not yield to any power. So that works in his favor. But the thing is, he has no experience, which means he is likely going to toe the party line as power goes from the Liberals under President Moon Jae-in to the Conservatives under Yoon. We are going to expect a lot of changes in policies, whether it's domestic or in foreign affairs. What this means is that a Yoon presidency would try to strengthen the alliance with America, and then he would also try to put some distance away from China, which might be problematic because he has talked about deploying a second anti-missile system, THAAD, which the first one that was deployed in 2016 really made China very angry, and they embarked on this economic retaliation against South Korea, which caused it to lose millions and billions in economic gains. If he were to push through this again, I think the country might face the same hardships as before. And then under Yoon, his administration is also going to be tougher on North Korea. The past 5 years, we've seen President Moon Jae-in trying to be more friendly towards North Korea, to encourage dialogue between North Korea and the US. But all that came to naught, and with Yoon as president, we can expect maybe a lot more tougher stance towards North Korea, and then there might be resumption of joint military exercises with the US, and that would provoke North Korea, and that what we'll see is more missiles being fired. And then what I'm worried about is fire and fury back to the 2017. And there are also concerns about how Yoon is going to improve relations with Japan. I mean, he has said that he will want to improve relations with Japan, and with a fresh new start, maybe things can be done, but it might not be easy because the issues that the two countries face in terms of historical issues related to whether it's forced labor during the war or comfort women, these are not easy to resolve. And also there are voices from Southeast Asia voicing concern whether a Yoon presidency might neglect Southeast Asia, considering that deepening relations with Southeast Asia was a legacy from the Moon Jae-in government.
Mi-chun, thank you for your perspectives as South Korea correspondent Chang Mi-chun in Seoul. For more on what to expect from South Korea's new president, take a look at our coverage online, from housing prices to the pandemic to gender and economic inequality. He faces quite a number of challenges. Read about them at str.sg/Asia. U.S. media outlets are reporting that President Joe Biden plans to call for an end of normal trade relations with Russia in coordination with G7 countries. Removing Russia's status of permanent normal trade relations with the U.S. would significantly escalate pressure on President Vladimir Putin to end the war in Ukraine. It would clear the way for increased tariffs on Russian imports, adding to the sanctions that have already hit the Russian economy hard. In a setback for Ukraine, European Union leaders have made it clear that the country will not be allowed to quickly gain EU membership, insisting that there is no fast-track process. Joining the EU is a process that usually takes years and requires meeting strict criteria. And in a meeting on Thursday, the focus was on what the bloc could do for Ukraine in the near future, not in the long term. Visit straitstimes.com for the latest news and our YouTube channel for more videos. Subscribe by hitting the red button below. I'm Haryanto Diman. Have a good weekend, take care, and we'll see you soon.